comes down to thinking if you're good enough, coaches will just reach out to you, coaches will flock to you, coaches will come as long as my talent or your talent level is up to a certain degree. Not always the case. And really to cover this first point, we're going to kick things off with a video.
A great analogy, one of our good friends that works with both Perfect Game and NCSA, Don Mitchell, he phrased it perfectly, or used the analogy that Carrie Underwood had to go to The Voice or America's Got Talent or whatever show she was on in order to be discovered. And it's the same thing, like you have to be proactive. College coaches don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time to look at 500,000 high school players. But what they do have time for is to evaluate the players that reach out to them. If they're showing an interest, if you're a player showing an interest, I'm going to look at you, I'm going to look at your video, I'm going to look at your history, and see if it's a good fit. So, that's something that every family has to do regardless of talent level.
All right, great stuff coming from Coach Nelson Gord over at head coach over at Harper College. And overall, big takeaways. Even, superstar singers had to be proactive. We equate that to the recruiting process. It's the same. And something else that he touched on, time is absolutely valuable for a student athlete as well as a college coach. David, when we look at being proactive, when we look at the time sensitivity, can we add a little bit more context as to, really busting this myth?
Yeah, and first of all, Carrie Underwood, I believe, was American Idol, so we got to correct Nelson there, but I digress. Yeah, I think the thing, Philip and I have talked to thousands of parents over the last decade or so here at NCSA, and we hear this, oh, my kid's good enough, coaches are just going to find them. But as you heard Nelson say, there's so many kids out there, right? Only about 7% of high school athletes will actually get an opportunity to play a sport in college. So that's a very small percentage when you think about the hundreds of thousands of athletes that are out there competing at the high school level. Again, coaches don't have the time, they don't have the ability, the bandwidth to know who all these recruits are. Obviously, they're going to do things on their end to be proactive in researching student athletes and being able to identify student athletes that they're interested in recruiting. But as Nelson mentioned, the student athletes who are taking the initiative to engage with that coach, if I'm a college coach and a student athlete is reaching out to me to express interest in my program, that's somebody that I want to pay a little bit of attention to. I want to see some video. I want to be able to understand what the student athlete may bring to my program, and someone that if they're expressing interest in me, in my program, I'm going to want to take a look into them, because I could reach out to hundreds of kids as a college coach, and if none of those are a good fit for my program or aren't interested in my program, I'm sort of spinning my tires. I'm wasting my time a little bit. And I know some people also think, well, we play travel ball. We're going to these clubs. We're going to these showcases. We're going to these tournaments. Like, we're going to get seen. We'll be okay. That's not always the case either. Again, think about all the tournaments, all the camps, all the showcases, all the kids that are there, all the teams that are there, all the different fields going on at the same place. I was at a West Coast Elite basketball tournament a few years ago, and they had 3 different locations in Orange County having games being played. And one of the courts, or one of the venues that I was at, had 10 courts going on at one time. So when a coach is at an event, they're there to specifically evaluate somebody in person who they've already either seen on film, they've identified, they may have already seen that person before, they may have offered that student athlete and just want to kind of kiss butt a little bit and show face. So again, don't rely on my kid's good enough, they're going to get seen. If your kid's 6'11", and they're dunking on dudes sophomore year, probably good enough to get seen. But Phil, there's so many kids out there, so many kids that are at an equal playing field when it comes to that talent, when it comes to that level, that, again, it really makes it impossible for college coaches to know who everyone is and just find kids. Again, the being proactive part is something we'll touch on probably quite a bit throughout this Facebook Live, and that's really important, not just, again, sitting back hoping that a coach is going to find me a scholarship is going to fall out of the sky and it's going to be the perfect place. So I think that's a big myth that we're busting here, number one.
Yeah, certainly. And just to expand on the last point that you covered there, David, we do want to give some credit to the college coaches, because, again, frequently there's just factually going to be way more student athletes than college coaches. But coaches are taking the extra mile. Outside of, again, targeting certain areas, they do host camps, as you alluded to there, David. And, again, at those camps, they are oftentimes at some of those camps to recruit. Now, I can remember when I was a student athlete going throughout the recruiting process, being a little bit ignorant to some of the ins and outs of what's supposed to happen. Whenever I went to a camp, I would see a college coach with a notepad writing some things down, and I would ignorantly think, hey, this college coach is there watching student athletes for the first time that they didn't know about, and they're writing their name down so they can follow up after. Really, that's not the case. They're there with that notepad with a list of student athletes that they already knew coming into that camp, so they can actually monitor, verify, see, get that athlete to pass the eyeball test, see that athlete in person for the first time, not necessarily that first introduction. So it's always about being proactive big time. That's absolutely what you need to do as a student athlete.